Follow along as I show you how to build this D-type signal from Showcase Miniatures. So here are the parts I'm going to use to build the signal. Here is a sheet of etched metal parts, a brass tube to use as the signal mast, the hood for the signal head. This is the back of the signal head, including the integrated bracket to attach it to the mast, the base of the signal, and then the LED. There's a double-sided sheet of instructions included, complete with very detailed diagrams and step-by-step instructions on how to construct the signal. This is the etched metal sheet that comes with the kit. This is the ladder, the signal platform, and the various brackets that hold the signal platform in place. Looking at the instructions, here is the platform, and here are the instructions to fold the sides vertically and to attach to the top bracket. The first thing we need to do is to bend the sides up. When you remove the platform, be careful not to snip off the tabs, as we'll need those later to attach the top bracket. Now the first thing we're going to do is to remove the signal platform from the etched metal sheet. So here is the signal platform. At each end you have tabs which you use to attach the top bracket. Now to bend the edges of the platform, you can either use a bending tool or you can use a steel edge, which is what I prefer to use. So slip the platform underneath the steel edge and hold it down, and then lightly push up with the scalpel blade. Push it up to 90 degrees. Now repeat this process for the second side. Put the edge underneath the steel rule and position it so that the fold is in exactly the right place. Now once again, slip the scalpel underneath the platform. Now make sure it is pushed down firmly so it doesn't move, and then gently lift it up into 90 degrees. Now here's the folded platform. Now you can see I've made sure that the sides are folded to 90 degrees. Now what you can do is put a little drop of CA in each corner, and this makes sure the edges stay upright and in the 90-degree position. Now the next step is to remove the top bracket from the metal sheet. Now you'll notice there are holes in the top bracket. Now these fit over the tabs on the signal platform. Now let's remove the top bracket from the metal sheet. So here is the top bracket. Now you'll see at the top of the signal platform are the two tabs that this bracket must fit onto. Now make a note of the alignment of these two tabs at the back of the signal platform and at the back of the top bracket, as these are what are attached to the signal mast. Now I'm going to put a dab of CA glue onto each tab to attach the top bracket. Now this is quite a fiddly process, so you just have to be very careful trying to attach the top brackets onto the tabs. It's sometimes better to use a gel type of CA so that your fingers don't get glued to the platform. So there you have the top bracket glued onto the signal platform. Now you just have to wait for the glue to dry. The next step now is to mark out the positions of the platform and the signal wire hole on the brass tube. The line on this instruction sheet is to scale, so line up the signal mast with the top of this line. The black dot marks the location of the bottom of the platform, and the red dot is where the hole goes for the LED wire. If you're doing a double-headed signal, the red dot at the bottom is for the bottom signal head. Now in this tutorial I'm only going to be doing the top signal head, so let's get started on that. Now using a fine-tipped Sharpie, make a dot on the signal mast where you're going to put the bottom of the platform. Now repeat this step for the position of the signal wire hole. Now that you've got the two marks in place, now it's time to start the next step, making the hole and positioning the platform. Now you can see the two marks we've made on the mast. Now we need to rough up the surface of the mast, and for this I'm using a triangular needle file. Now the reason for doing this is to make it easier to position the drill bit to make the hole. Without this roughed up area, the drill bit will just slip off the mast and will not be able to start making a hole. Now using a 0.02 inch or a 0.5 mm drill bit, start making the hole. Just use a very smooth motion and don't push very hard. This brass tubing is fairly soft metal, so it won't take long to go through. You'll feel the drill bit just bite when it gets through the hole, so just slow it down a bit and just do a final couple of turns just to make sure it's gone through. So just have a close look at the hole just to make sure it actually has gone through. Now using the drill bit, just angle it slightly to get rid of any burrs that might catch onto the insulation of the wiring. Just need to give it a couple of turns in each direction just to create a sort of bevel or a slope in the hole. So now we're going to glue the platform onto the mast. Now make a note of where the mark is for the bottom of the platform. Now once again I'm going to use CA gel just to give me some time to position the platform in place. Now using the CA gel gives you enough time to be able to position this platform in place. I use a pair of tweezers just to make it easier to get a grip and put it exactly where I want it. Once you're happy with the position of the platform, get another dab of CA glue and put it on the tab that holds the top platform in place. Now you'll notice if you let go of the mast, it'll roll slightly to the side. So to prevent it from doing this, I use a weight to hold it in place. In this case I'm going to use a steel rule to hold it down and keep it vertical while it's drying. The next step is to build the signal head. Now this kit comes with the signal head in two parts. Now the first part is the back of the signal head. Now the nice thing about this is that it's an all-in-one piece which includes the back of the signal head as well as an integrated bracket to mount it onto the signal mast. There's some great detail on the back of this with the 3 doors to access the LEDs, and the bracket has got an integrated channel in it where you can run the LED wiring down. Now the next part and the most important bit is the signal hood. Now this is the D-type or Darth Vader type of signal hood, and it's got holes in there for the 3 LEDs. So let's get started on putting the signal head together. So now with the LED you need to make sure you've got it the right way around. Now the best way to check this is to turn it around, and you'll be able to see on the back of it where the wires are soldered onto the individual LEDs. You can see there's a long wire which is the common, and then individual wires which go to each LED. Now the recommendation is to use canopy glue to secure the LED in place, just in case you want to remove it. But I only had the CA glue to hand, so I'll just use that instead. So just a couple of dabs of that into the back of the signal head. Now I'm going to take the LED and I'm going to make sure I've got it the right way around. As I said, once again, just make sure that the wires are at the back. You see there, it's just almost got it wrong. Make sure you flip it around and then have the wires facing the back of the cabinet. So you push that in, and then holding it in place, just run the wire down the channel of the bracket. Now yet again I'll just put a little dab of glue into the channel, and this is going to hold the wire in place so it doesn't come loose. It's better to have it glued in place, it just makes it easier when you actually install this onto the mast. And it'll be neater once it's all put together. So I'm just going to hold that in place until it dries. Now that the glue is dried, the LED is securely in place and the wire is neatly in the channel. And now it's time to install the signal hood. Now put a few dabs of canopy glue, or CA if you don't have canopy glue, onto the back of the signal. I'm just going to put a couple of dabs on the other side as well. Now using a pair of tweezers, I'm just going to gently put the hood onto the backing of the signal, and you've got to be quite careful just to line it up. I end up using my fingers to do this. Of course you get a bit of glue on your fingers, but the main bit is you've got to make sure you line up the LEDs with the holes on the signal. That is very important. So that's another good reason to use canopy glue or CA gel to allow you to position it afterwards. So now here's the signal head once it's dried, and you can see it all looks nice and everything lines up properly. The LEDs are exactly where they should be. I should mention it's easier to paint this before assembling it, but for the purpose of this demonstration I've just left it as it is, and I'll paint it when I'm finished. Now before we put the signal head on, you need to make sure you put the signal on the right side of the signal mast. Now most of the American prototypes do right-hand running, so the signal's on the right-hand side of the track. For that you will need the signal platform to be on the right-hand side, so the signal head will be on the left of the mast as it's facing you. And looking at it from above, the signal will be facing this way. Now if you're modeling a prototype that does left-hand running, obviously you just switch it around and then the signal will be pointing in this direction. Now we take the signal head, and you need to make sure that the signal wire is out of the way of the bracket or where it attaches to the mast. So you just bend that down slightly, because you need to make sure that the mast fits firmly in place without interference from the wire. Now once again, using the CA gel, I'm just going to put a dab of that on the bracket where it connects into the mast. And again, this will give us time to position it before it dries. Now we're going to position the signal head level with the top of the signal mast. So the top of the signal head must line up with the top of the signal mast. And now you just take the bracket and you clip it onto the mast. It should clip in there quite snugly, obviously once you get your alignment right. And there it goes, and it fits in very snugly into there. You can pretty much let go as soon as you've got it in place, and then just check the alignment from all angles. Just make sure it's vertical and horizontal, and again, by using the gel glue, it gives you time to push it and make sure it is exactly where you want it. It just gives you those few extra minutes to align everything properly. Now we're on to the installation of the bracket that goes underneath the platform, and this goes at a 45-degree angle against the mast. So now we need to remove it from the sprue. So now we have to bend this bracket to a 45-degree angle just where it attaches to the mast. So once again, I'm going to use a steel ruler to hold this in place and placing it just where I'm going to bend it. Now using a scalpel blade, just gently bend the bracket up to 45 degrees. Just bend it very slowly as it's very delicate. Now let me show you where the bracket goes. So underneath the platform, it's going to go between the bottom edge of the platform and the mast. Now if I show you the bracket, you can see the end of it is neatly folded into 45 degrees. Now it's ready to glue onto the signal mast. So once again, using the CA glue, the gel glue, I'm going to put a bit of that on the end of the bracket. Just put a tiny dab on there, and by using the gel it gives us plenty of time to position it. Now using a pair of tweezers, put the hook at the end of the platform support against the mast and hold it in place, and then gently slide the support up the mast until it touches the bottom of the platform. Now this can be a little bit fiddly, so it is a very small part, but once you've got it in place you can just get a good grip on it with the tweezers and then just slide it up towards the bottom of the platform. Now as you can see here, I've almost got it in the right place. It's just touching the bottom of the platform. Now what I do is, once again using the tweezers, I'm going to lift the signal up and just get into positions where I can see the edge of the platform and just make sure everything is exactly where I want it. So I just push up and just push it right against the bottom of the platform, and using the tweezers just finalize where the position is going to be, and then the gel will now hold it in place. Just double check and make sure it's positioned exactly where you want it. Once you're happy with the position of it, put a small dab of glue just at the top of the bracket, just to hold it onto the bottom of the platform. And this will make sure that it's going to be nice and secure, so it's held at the bottom and at the top. And now we can just leave it and let the glue dry. Here's the platform support in place. Now we're ready to install the ladder. So next we'll remove the ladder and get it ready for installation. Now make sure you remove the rough edges from where it was attached to the sprue and just use a file to file that down. Just be very careful because this is very delicate and can bend easily. Now you just need to make sure the ladder goes in the correct position, and here it goes on the right hand side of the signal mast against the platform. Now the ladder is a bit trickier to install, but once again I'm just going to use the gel, and I'm going to put some on the platform floor and on the side of the platform on the railing. So I found this was the trickiest part of the build. Just put a little bit of glue on the base of the platform, just enough for the width of the ladder, and then put it on the railings as well, just on the edge. Now take that all the way to the top. The ladder is going to go to the top of that railing. Now here comes the really tricky bit. So put the mast down on the ground, lay it flat, and then align the ladder to the base of the platform and to the railing on the right hand side. As you can see, this isn't the easiest to do. Obviously you've got to bear in mind that you don't want to get your fingers stuck to it either. So it's quite tricky, but you just try it a few times and eventually you'll get it to sit exactly where you want it. Once you've got it where you want it, just make sure it stays in place and let it dry. Well, the next step is to put the base of the signal on. Now, depending on your prototype, the signal heights vary between 12 and 15 feet. Now you obviously need to check with your prototype to see what the signal heights are in your area, but I'm just making a mark, and mine is going to be 15 feet. So I've made a mark over here, so 15 scale feet from the base of the signal to the top of the signal. Now here's the base, and it is nicely cast as well. Nice detail on it, the bolt detail on there, and it's got a hole pre-drilled through it. So what we're going to do now is just take this and just gently push it through. Now the first time you do this, you might need to push a little bit harder just to break it, just to break a little bit of the flashing at the bottom. But if you just twist it like that, keep on twisting and pushing, this will come through. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this all the way to the top, and this is going to be the base of my signal. I'm going to do that so that that over there, that is 15 scale feet from the base of that to the top of that. And now you just take a little bit of CA again, and you just dab it on the base over there, and then a little bit at the top as well. So the next step now is to cut the ladder. So once this is dry and ready to go, you'll want to cut the ladder at the ground level. I'm just taking that, there, and then snip it on that side. Make sure it's slipped all the way through. There we go. Okay. And there you have the finished signal. So there's the finished signal. Now the last step is to paint this. Now depending on whether you painted the hood before or after, the hood will normally be a black colour. Normally I'd just use a flat black. And just look at your prototype to see what colour everything else is. Most of this will all be flat black. And then the mast is usually silver or aluminium, and the base will be a concrete colour. And then the top bit, so this where it comes in at the bottom here, will be metal usually, so you can paint that a metal colour. As at the ladder and the pole will usually be silver or aluminium. So once that is done, that will work brilliantly. Another thing you can do is use something like the crystal clear, and you can then dab some of that in each of those to just create a lens for each one. So when it dries, it'll be transparent and it'll be quite a nice effect with the LEDs showing through. So that is an optional step if you want to add that at all. But it does look quite nice when it's all lit up with the lenses in place. Now here's the method I use to thread the wire through the tube. Like I said earlier, you can do it as per the instructions with the hole you drilled earlier. You thread the wire through the hole and then down the tube. But I've had a lot of trouble with that. So what I've done, because there's a short section over here, I just thread it down the top of the tube. So I put the wire right against the tube over here. I glue it onto the tube and then I thread the wire down this, down the tube from the top. So let me show you how I do that. So what I normally do is I take the end of the wire, I can find the end of the wire here, and where the loose ends are, just where it starts, where it's still twisted, you can try to twist it as tight as you can. Where the wires are still tightly wound and where it starts to come loose, I put a dab of very thin CA glue on there, let it harden, and then I just snip off the loose wires. And that way you get a nice solid end to this wire. This makes it a lot easier to thread it through. So now you take that wire and so you do it gently here. We'll then thread it through. Now you need to make sure when you thread it through, you need to make sure the wire is on the correct side of the signal head. So I'm going to thread this on the right hand side of the signal head. So I just need to make sure this wire is coming out so that it's going to go run up like that. So I've got the wire nice and loose. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly bend that, and then it's useful to use magnifying glass if you have them, or magnifying your optivisors, something like that, so you can see what you're doing. I'm just going to give this a try without using those, see if I can get it in. And now you just gently take that thread, just gently take that end of the wire, and you pass it through. You can see there, it's gone through the end of that. And you just gently, very gently, because you don't want the wire to bend as you're putting it in. So you push it through. Okay, now you just carry on gently threading it through, very slowly. There's no rush to do this, you just need to do it gently. It said if you take a rush, it'll get caught and it'll be harder to thread it through because there'll be a knot in the wire. Just continue threading it through. And now we'll see at the bottom here, it start to come out there. So now what you can do is just gently, very gently pull it through, and just be careful at the top. You don't want any knots forming over here. You just want it to come gently down the tube. So just very slowly just pull it down. And just make sure as you get there, make sure it's not twisted. Just make sure you twist it straight so that it's not going to get a knot in there. And gently pull it down. Now what you want to do here is, as it comes through to this bit here, don't pull it too tight, otherwise you risk stripping the insulation off, because obviously it's so just gently pull it down. And then what I normally do then is I just push this wire, bend it up to get it straight against the pole, and that allows you to pull it down at the top again. Put it down like that, and you'll see there I'll show you over here. So you see there it's coming up nicely at the top. And what I normally do is I'll put a bit of CA gel over here, and then I can just take the wire and gently attach it to the pole, to the mast, until it's dry. Once it's dry, I can then just pull the final bit very slightly at the top here. And I'll just show you what it looks like when it's done. So once it's painted, So here's the painted version. Now once it's painted, if you have a look there, you can barely see the wire going up over there and then through the top. So once it's painted, it's completely hidden, or pretty much hidden. You won't be able to, unless you look at it very closely, you won't notice it there. And here is the finished signal, all painted up. So thank you for watching. Good luck building your own signals. If you've got any questions, please put a comment below.